Hello everyone. I am Mallikarjun Naralasetty, a doctoral student at Srishti Manipal Institute, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, India. Today's presentation is titled Media and Architecture: How Cityscapes and Built Environment are Defined by Cinema in India in the New Millennium. The presentation focuses on the proposed capital city of Amaravati for the state of Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh is a southern state in Indian subcontinent. In 2014, was the political bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh. There was a need for a new capital city to be developed for Andhra. Amaravati, a historical city in Andhra Pradesh, was chosen as a name and in the tentative place of its origins, that is Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh. This is the political landscape of the city situated in Andhra Pradesh state post-bifurcation. Hyderabad, the former capital of the United State of Andhra Pradesh, is now part of Telangana, and there was a necessity for a new capital city for the state of Andhra Pradesh. Then Chief Minister Nara Chandra Babu Naidu proposed a greenfield project and named it Amaravati, the people's capital. Under the leadership of Nara Chandra Babu Naidu, the greenfield project was headed by APCRDA, Andhra Pradesh Capital Region Development Authority, and in partnership with the Singapore Economic Development Board, a competition for design proposals was made. So this is one of the largest land pooling projects for the entire state of Andhra Pradesh, comprising nearly 53,647 acres spread across 900 square kilometers. This Amaravati proposed capital is situated on the fertile river delta of River Krishna on the Bay of Bengal. Following the APCRDA design competition, the jury has found MAHE Associates, a Japanese associate design firm, as the winning competition of the proposed design capital. The following visuals that you see are from their proposal. MAHE Associates strictly adhered to the famous Le Corbusier's modernistic theory that has produced cities like Chandigarh, Gandhinagar, and Bhubaneswar in India. It is divided into sectors, providing buildings with mid to high-rise structures, huge open landscapes, and situating the buildings into the center of the public buildings into the center of the greenfield, with water bodies spreading from backwaters of Krishna Delta. Amaravati as a capital city was proposed at a cost of converting these fertile lands to develop a globally competent city that houses political and administrative establishments to rule its population as a center of authority, a place of prestige, honor, and respect, and as a place that upholds the area's culture, language, and history. But when these designs were made public, it was harshly criticized on several accounts that it was like the public buildings at Chandigarh. It was too futuristic. It did not display any Indian characteristics. MAHE and Associates claim they have made extensive design changes to meet the new demands, but despite that, the government decided to reopen the competition and remove the firm from the project. The criticism didn't extend just to the visual aspects of the buildings, but into the competency of the government to propose a greenfield plan which is sustainable and which is futuristic. With the stakes of his government in jeopardy, Nara Chandra Babu Naidu was looking for options for someone who can create the visual impact that the people of Andhra Pradesh are looking for. None of the worldwide travels and master plans submitted by top architects could match the expectations of Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu, who is awestruck by 𝗃𝗄𝗃, the VFX kingdom in movie 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁. And in a decision that took many by surprise, the CM has reportedly appointed Tollywood director S.S. Rajamouli as the advisor to London-based architect Norman Foster, the man behind the England Supreme Court, Apple's second campus in California, and the upcoming Mazda city in Abu Dhabi, in association with India-based architect Hafiz Contractor to realize the capital city of Amaravati. S.S. Rajamouli, a director famous for creating imaginary city of 𝗃𝗄𝗃 in his blockbuster film 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁, would help the Andhra Pradesh government in designing the new capital. Naidu was impressed with the designs Rajamouli approved for 𝗃𝗄𝗃, the imaginary kingdom capital of King 𝗃𝗶𝗵, on the sets made for his film, and questioned why such design should not be used for government buildings in Amaravati. With Rajamouli on board, people expected to replicate the designs of 𝗃𝗄𝗃 into Amaravati. The following visuals that you see are from the movie of 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁, Part 1, The Beginning, released in 2015. In comparison with MAHE Associates' proposal for Amaravati capital, 𝗃𝗄𝗃 stood above and beyond people's imagination. These concrete rectangular boxes proposed in modernistic style couldn't impact people who are used to the visuals of 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁 from this movie. The architecture of 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁 itself. In the words of Parvez Zahi, an architectural critic, is as follows. 𝗃𝗄𝗃 kingdom was a fictional creation, but was modeled on ancient cities such as Ayodhya in Ramayana, Indraprastha, and Maisabha in the Mahabharata. The effort went into creating the ideological fantasy world of 𝗃𝗄𝗃 by director Rajamouli, producers, production designer Sabu Cyril, and concept designer Vishwanath Sundaram. The step was phenomenal despite the challenges of recreating archaic existence in a film. The magnificence of each shot is an awe-inspiring experience for everyone who has seen 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁. With Rajamouli on board, Chandrababu Naidu aspired to reinvoke his vision for Amaravati. Rajamouli, with the success of 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁, took up the challenge of proposing his own design ideas for the movie. And the proposed designs as follows in his own words.
On the terrace above the central hall, a series of mirrors are placed in a contraption that has the ability to turn or rotate in 360 degrees. The whole movement of the rig is computerized. When the required time, say 9:15 a.m., is input into the system, the rig moves in such a way that the first mirror catches the light from the sun and reflects onto the second one, which in turn directs the light onto the third mirror. The third mirror then makes the subtle adjustments to trace the sunlight along the wall of the statue. And exactly at 9:15 a.m., the rays touch the feet of Telugu-language.
Visuals presented by Rajamouli not only increase the viewers' expectations of what a building can be and what pride of Andhra people can reflect in creating public spaces and public architecture for a proposed new city. With him being the ambassador for Amaravati, new revised designs under the leadership of Foster's Press Partners was expected to be on par with 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗁. The following images that you see are from their revised designs.
On the banks of the river Krishna, in the new state of Andhra Pradesh, a new future is born. Amaravati, the people's capital, irrigated with an abundance of recycled water, a green spine runs from the river edge, dictating the sustaining grid of the city. Formed around 13 urban plazas representing the state districts of Andhra Pradesh, a powerful celebration of an ancient past, defining what is to become the most beautiful and sustainable city of tomorrow. Flowing waterways, green open spaces, the highest standards of sustainability, large shaded walkways, an environment designed with people at its heart. The vision for the government complex to be energy self-sufficient, made possible by generating 100% renewable energies from the latest technologies. Solar energy will sustain a transportation system comprised of e-buses, metros, water taxis for irrigation. It stands proud at the heart in local materials and local expertise. Every building certified for sustainability. The legislature stands proud at the heart of the Amaravati government city, with viewing decks and a museum open to the public, an icon of the state, a symbol of the future. Inspired by the traditional stupa, the High Court is a democratic and cultural landmark for the region. Elegant horizontal fence, an open roof, natural ventilation, yet protected from the rain and sun. 5 graceful towers form the secretariat and government heads of department, surrounded by
Context of cities and their architecture between 1990s and the new millennium evolved out of an amalgamation of regional, modernistic, and global trends. It created a hybrid image driven by glitter and glamour to appeal both to the local and global residents without much regard to the real needs of its residents. As we have seen in the presentation by Foster Plus partners, the revised designs for the capital city of Amaravati reflected a literal translation of words taken from Telugu culture. Words like Deepam, which is a lantern for prayer, is converted into secretariat. Words like Stupa, which has a historical context of a built structure during the Buddhist period, is translated into the High Court. So the literal translation of these words meant pride and competence of the government in reflecting what the people's ideas were for a city. The necessity to sustain the image of a city as a global entity drives the policymakers to envision cities as aesthetic vehicles. The public is involved in this process to push the policymakers to plan cities in comparison to other cities. This has its origins in cinematic imagery that was produced between 1990s and 2000s during the economic liberalization phase of India. The fetishization of city making is a primary concern here, where the image of a city, whether Amaravati or Maheshmati, become the center of anxiety to meet the needs of an electorate for whom the basic understanding of the city is found by cinema in the post-liberalized society. The meaning and identity of the city in contemporary world, one can argue, is implicated in the narratives of cinema and cinema as a narrative. As a signifier of growth, development, great past and authority, the city is layered as a cinematic form. It is simply that the cinematic image was successful in creating the image of global cities as the standard of growth and development in India. And it is not a direct or indirect effort, but it is simply through cinematic narration. Here is an example of how cultural conflict between two identities of Western and Indian come together in story narration.
Lemon Day ceremony. Father's Day. Today is the Make the Widow ceremony. Very painful.
Everything needs a million ceremonies. Never questioned it when I was here, but the funny thing is no one even knows why they do it.
Don't convince somebody to understand.
Do you?
Exactly, but I don't criticize my culture every opportunity I get.
What culture? Remind a widow as to how unfortunate she is? And I'm not criticizing, merely questioning. If there's a good reason, I have no problem. Following traditions blindly is stupidity.
At least I'm not a deserter.
Is that what I am? Just because I had the good fortune to compare two cultures, to take the best of both and make my own. Have you ever tried to see my point of view?
Don't raise your voice, people will hear us.
Like I care. I've tried, Ashwini. I've really tried. But you seem to hate everything that's even remotely American. Well, I am part American. And if you don't like what you see, I'm sorry. Bye, Ashwini.
Often, the structural narrative of cinemas have put the conflict of East and West cultural differences and successfully portrayed to an extent the Western civilization as a standard of liberalized society in India. Telugu cinema, one of the most successful diasporic cinema in India, has a huge diasporic base in the US and Canada and several parts of Europe. Telugu cinema found audience all over the world, on par with the Mumbai-based Hindi cinema known as Bollywood. Telugu cinema has often been known for its big budget, lavish production process, rich song productions, and top-billed actors. This big budgeted culture proved perfect to promote ideas of place, location, culture, authority, and values in most unexpected ways. It is no exaggeration to say that cinema was instrumental in this process, familiarizing the global architecture to modern Telugu audience. The film slowly saw a shift from localized family stories to global narratives, where travel, migration, tourism, consumption of other cultures began to become a norm. Telugu films such as Coolie Number 1, 𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗃 Manavralu, Ramudu Vachadu, Hyderabad Blues, Dollar Dreams, Hello Brother, etc. dealt with subjects of migration, finding roots, critiquing one's own culture and its inadequacies, often showing global culture on a better ground, if not higher. Though city in this film served for their scenic background, they were instrumental in making the global architectural image more familiar to the viewers. This familiarization can be attributed to public acceptance of global architectural trends as marked for growth and progress. Rahul Mehrotra, an architect and an academician, in his book Architecture in India since 1990, explains post-liberalization architecture as follows, and I quote, "A period that marks the liberalization of the country's economy and reflect the contradictions, glamour, and displacement brought by globalization and rapid economic mobility, showcasing a complex construct of disparate agencies in which bizarre forms of coexistence characterize the building environment. It brings to life the vivid illustrations, a transformation in the construction of identities, which range from pan-national to those more fluid in their expression. Hybridity and pluralism reign over singular identities, their architecture being the mirror of the socio-economic as well as the political fabric of the nation state." Here is an example of the conflict between cultural changes in the 90s, reflected in a movie called Dollar Dreams, released in 2000, written and directed by Shekhar Kamala, which won the National Award that year.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we talk about the people think you are a bold, crazy man. Both my children have that. I am living with my daughter. He is my grandson. He too wants to be.
Why don't you try to stop them?
You are listening to me. Because you think, last time, why should they listen? They are my children. I'll tell you a small story. Hari Musladi Sutti Kadu.
So the scene follows a journalistic student interviewing an old man for her thesis on migration. The father explains the difficulties of people migrating to United States or Europe and never returning back. The trend started in 1990s with economic liberalization and movies propagating the global culture as a standard to aspire for, with 66% of educated youth in Andhra Pradesh migrating to the United States between these 2 decades. And the migration happened other direction as well, with people like Nara Chandra Babu Naidu at power in the 90s aspired to transform Indian cities into global cities. And Singapore stood as a prime example for that, with Chandra Babu Naidu, post-liberal and post-globalized city, involving Singapore Development Authority directly into the designs of developing Hyderabad into a tech giant. Singapore grew from a crumbling economy into a developed nation in 50 years and recovering from war, and stood as an example for India. When the Singapore Development Authority signed a public-private partnership with Andhra Pradesh in the 90s, the architectural identity of the state rapidly changed with a copy-paste image of global designs. The IT area, named as Hyderabad, emerged as a mirror image of Singapore, contrary to the modernistic architectural image of Le Corbusier. In conclusion, when we hear a city in contemporary world, we associate it with growth, development, opportunity, and freedom. These are reflected in the policymakers' ideas in terms of GDP, infrastructure, employment, and escape from discrimination. The visual image for these words in a contemporary world is taught to a public through cinema as a narrative, and it happened between the 90s and 2000s, post-liberalization, globalization, in the context of India. These visual images stood as an example for what to aspire from a city. The manifestation of desire into the physical form of a city is mass-produced through these global views of a city and cinema. Between the mid-2000s, this image overlapped with the idea of self-pride and nationalistic identity. So a hybrid image of a city started brewing in public's mind, forcing policymakers to design cities and make them sustainable than developing sustainable cities. The gap between the image and function of a city involves a huge struggle. It continues, especially in the light of a new political government in power, not showing interest in building Amaravati in the way it was proposed. The cinematic narrative continues in their glorification of inhuman and unsustainable architectural practices. The desire to imitate global architecture while retaining a regional identity has posed more questions about sustenance and cost effectiveness. Amaravati is an amalgamation of both the perceived cinematic imagery as a sign of power and growth and the real representation of an imagined city and imprinted on the memory of its people. The resulting city would be a conflicting entity of capitalistic skeleton under a nationalistic skin, that is facade. This conflict never supports national ecosystem and growth. The cities that are being proposed as smart cities in India, like the Gift City in Gujarat, Global City in Gurgaon, or any other contemporary cities across the world, share the same narrative of global architecture. Rather than creating regionalized sustainable cities, they adapt an image-based city of global architecture and force sustainability onto it. The resulting is, as we see on this slide, what is visualized can never be, in many aspects, get to reality, because at one point we do realize that sustainability can't be a copy-paste mechanism of image. Thank you.